Last year, I confronted Heizo Takenaka, the former Japanese finance minister, over why he handed over control of the Japanese financial system to a group of American and European oligarchs. He and his envoy told me that it was because Japan had been threatened by an earthquake machine. I did not believe it at the time. However, when I started exposing some of their doings, I was told by the Japanese security police that because of what I had said on places like rents.com, that Niigata City was going to be hit by an earthquake. 2 days later, Japan's largest nuclear reactor was the exact epicenter of two earthquakes, both 6.8 in magnitude. And that was too much of a coincidence for me. So I started doing research and found out about HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. And I realized that they really did know how to make earthquakes. And they do it by shooting a billion-watt microwave into the ionosphere, which is the part of the atmosphere that has a lot of energy in it. That pushes the ionosphere up into outer space, and then it rebounds. And the way it rebounds can cause earthquakes. Just like an opera singer can break a glass by singing at a certain level, or by dragging your fingernails on a blackboard, you feel a weird sensation. If they adjust the vibration for the rock underneath their target site, they can do that. The same machine can also heat up subterranean water to cause earthquakes. And remember, a billion-watt microwave. What does microwave do to water? It heats it up. Now imagine if you put 1 billion watts into a tropical storm. You could make it much bigger, and you could change the direction it flows in. You know how there's high pressure zones and low pressure zones. Well, high is hot and low is cold. And the hot flows into the cold. And vice versa, and there's more of the cold. So they can heat up an area and cause it to flow into a next door area. In other words, these people are capable of creating the cyclone that hit Myanmar, the tsunami that hit Indonesia, and the earthquake that hit China. Now, after the earthquakes hit Niigata, a member of the Inagawa crime family, which is based in around the U.S. Yokosuka Air Base, and members of the Inagawa family have told me that their big boss is George Bush Sr. In other words, they work for Skull and Bones. And they invited me to a so-called UFO gathering where they showed me the video of this blob. They told me it was a UFO, but it was obviously, to me anyway, a plasma weapon, or a ball of heat created by something like a billion-watt microwave. And I predicted in my blog that there would be videos of lights found above China before the earthquake. And those videos then appeared on the internet after I predicted they would. And furthermore, a Taiwanese satellite detected a 50% drop in the ionosphere, in the amount of electric energy in the ionosphere above the earthquake zone. Now, a 50% drop would be exactly what would happen with HAARP. It would push the ionosphere up, and then it would slam back down. So, it looks like the insane criminals who have taken over the U.S. government are killing people and threatening people with earthquake weapons. It doesn't look like it. I actually have some of the proof. And I want to ask the governments of China and Russia and Japan to reveal to the world everything they know about these weapons and the use by the Americans.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Thursday, not Friday, like I said in the first video, Thursday, March 17th, 2011, and I'm Darko. Welcome to part 2 of this news bulletin, everyone. You just saw that video there, and I just wanted to finish up by saying that no, the Russians and the Chinese will not expose the U.S.'s weather weapons. Why? Because they possess that technology themselves, and in doing so, they would expose their own technology. So, not going to happen. NUKE crisis water spray is having little effect. Obama just gave a reassuring but mostly insignificant statement on the NUKE crisis. He reaffirmed that only a 50-mile radius of Fukushima is at risk. Meanwhile, the crisis continues unabated. Water spray by helicopter and truck has had mixed effects. This morning, radiation seemed to be increasing. Briefly, TEPCO said they were working. It says other reports say they're not. Everything depends on efforts to restart cooling systems the way power line attached earlier. It says Obama says there is a substantial risk to people who are nearby, but I want to be very clear, we do not expect harmful levels of radiation to reach the United States. And I'm going to move on to another. And this was an article that was posted from someone that I subscribe from, and it's Tokyo radiation levels, and it's from March 17th, and it says, due to concerns about radiation in Tokyo from a number of our readers, Metropolis will publish daily radiation levels, sometimes multiple times daily if relevant. And it says this is a log of background radiation levels in Tokyo from March 15th. It says measurements will be taken daily at different times, and you can see elevated but not harmful on the 15th, and then again on the 15th, twice normal but fine. Then says twice normal but fine on the 16th normal, and then here on the 17th it's saying it's normal 9 micro-roentgens. I'm not a physicist or a geologist, so but either way it's saying it's normal. So and then it says here, low radioactivity seen heading towards North America. So again, like I said, conflicting reports. You just got to make up your own mind here. Low concentrations of radioactive particles from Japan's disaster-hit nuclear power plant have been heading eastwards and are expected to reach North America in days, a Swedish official said on Thursday. So you got to get your information from the Swedes. In Washington, and the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission said radioactivity would disperse over the long distance, and it did not expect any harmful amounts to reach the country. And we'll move on here. UN projection shows radioactive plume hitting Southern California by Friday. Experts from the United Nations Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization have put out a forecast projecting the potential path of the Fukushima Daiichi radiation plume, and they say by sometime on Friday it will hit the U.S. west coast of Southern California. Based on wind patterns and the direction the plume is heading, it will pass through the Aleutian Islands in the northern Pacific Ocean near Alaska on Thursday, that's today, and head down through Southern California and onward east through Friday. So Californians get to wake up tomorrow morning to a radiation plume. So there's also some news I'll be getting to on what you can do about that. Feds deploy more radiation monitors in the western United States. Growing concerns by Americans over exposure from damaged nuclear plants in Japan has prompted officials to deploy more radiation monitors in the western United States and Pacific territories, federal environmental regulators said. And it says they do not expect harmful radiation levels to reach anywhere in the U.S. from Japan. That's the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The agency decided out of abundance of caution to send these deployable monitors in order to get some monitors on the ground closer to Japan. So even though they're doing it, they're saying there's no risk. Napolitano, U.S. drills for disasters like Japan. Homeland Security Janet Napolitano says U.S. emergency agencies constantly rehearse for a disaster like the one unfolding in Japan, and American first responders will learn from the experience of other Japanese counterparts. Then we have this, U.S. unprepared for nuclear crisis, says survey. Then Japan's disaster toll at 15,000. Official number of dead and missing after a devastating earthquake and tsunami in Japan has topped 15,000, police said on Thursday. Japan government losing public trust as nuclear crisis worsens. Tokyo passengers trigger U.S. airport detectors. New York Post says, it says Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago airports were triggered when passengers from flights that started in Tokyo passed through customs. The New York Post reported indicating low radiation levels in travelers' luggage and aircraft cabin filtration system. No passengers were quarantined, the newspaper said. Then we have radiation spurs fears around Japanese foods. They're going to start checking that out. Military rescuers brace for Japan radiation and U.S. aid flights. Low levels of radiation exposure probably will become a fact of life for U.S. military forces flying relief and rescue missions to aid victims of Japan's earthquake as they near areas affected by leaks from a damaged nuclear plant, according to a U.S. Navy spokesman. Okay, now here comes, I guess you can say, either propaganda or just whatever, right? It could either just be just they're telling the truth, but history says governments deny everything, they don't tell you the truth, so you have to pretty much try to scour all the information out there for yourself. Like I said, okay, here we go. Group questions nuclear safety after Pickering leak. So they had a minor earthquake in Quebec, and now there's a leak in a nuclear plant. So some Canadians are questioning the safety of our nuclear reactors after a leak at the Pickering nuclear plants this week, right? I mean, that would be good, right? You kind of want to question what's going on in your area if there's another earthquake and another nuclear leak. And it says even though officials say it caused virtually no risk to the public.
Professionals know the dangers their counterparts are facing.
The workers at Fukushima nuclear facility are heroes.
The Society of Energy Professionals represents thousands of people who work in the province's nuclear industry. Engineer Ron Boss works in and lives beside a nuclear plant.
When I go home at night, I sleep well. I don't have any concerns about the safe operation of the Darlington Nuclear Station just up the road, because I know the people that are operating that plant are very conscientious about safety, just like
Generation insists that Monday's leak at the Pickering nuclear plant poses no threat to human health.
This is something that we're fixing and something that you shouldn't be concerned about.
But critics are saying Ontario residents should be concerned. While comparisons to Japan's current nuclear crisis may be overblown, some say we most definitely dodged a bullet.
In this case, there may have been minimal amounts of radioactivity, but that's just by luck.
The leak at the plant was caused by a failed pump seal. 73,000 liters of demineralized water was released into Lake Ontario. The water came from one of the spent fuel bays used to cool spent fuel rods. Nuclear industry critic Gordon Edwards says that is the same type of source of the greatest radiation exposures right now in Japan.
If the irradiated fuel in the spent fuel was damaged, then you would have huge amounts of radioactivity available to go directly into Lake Ontario.
Edwards says the fact that there is a direct pathway from the spent fuel bay into Lake Ontario is also alarming. And he says, just like the Fukushima plant in Japan, the spent fuel bays at the Pickering plant are not housed in a protective containment vessel.
We should have been notified.
Meanwhile, residents who live near the plant are asking why they didn't know about the problem sooner.
When a spill like this happens, I didn't know about it.
As a resident, yeah, I'm absolutely concerned. I don't know what it is that spilled or if there's anything in that water that we need to be concerned about other than that's our drinking water.
While OPG did alert local groups and authorities right away, given the dramatic and frightening story unfolding in Japan, officials admitted they could have done better in getting the word out. Now, Lake Ontario is the main source of drinking water for millions of residents who live along the lake. OPG says it plans to launch a full review of the incident. Reporting live, I'm Zoraida Allman. Paul, back to you.
Obama tells Americans, do not prepare for radioactive fallout, just listen to your government. In a truly incredible example of the complete disregard for the health and safety of the American people, President Barroso Toro told Americans they should not prepare for radiation from the possible meltdown of the nuclear power plant in Fukushima. The CDC health experts do not recommend people in the U.S. to take precautionary measures beyond staying informed. Well, they're not even informing you, right? U.S. radiation experts try to decipher reports. And it goes down here and it says, radiation experts in the USA say the lack of information about radioactivity released from the smoldering reactors makes it impossible to gauge the current dangers. Then we're moving on here. We have iodine therapy unnecessary, says British Columbia officials. Los Angeles health officials urge caution in taking potassium iodide. And then we have this, Surgeon General, buying iodide is a precaution. It says conflicting messages appear in the effort to buy iodine. It says a Surgeon General supported the idea as a worthy precaution. So there you go. WHO official assures no significant international spread of nuke radiation from quake-hit Japan. Japanese atomic plume will pose no serious threat to U.S. coasts. China's seawater will not be affected by radioactive leaks from Japan, and they even had their own quake there right before the Japanese quake. Situation at plant not worsening. Calm down. Japan's nuclear crisis poses no risk to British Columbia. Then we have what's being said about the radiation danger. Says some Americans are worried about radiation from the nuclear reactors, prompting a run on potassium iodide pills. But the scientific consensus is that the fear is unfounded. So trust the experts and the scientists. IEA says Japan, and I'm not saying all scientists are lying, I'm just saying the mainstream establishment scientists who are lying. Says here, IAEA says Japan situation serious but stable. Foreign bankers flee Tokyo. Then we have Aussies advised to leave Japan immediately. India says no threat from radiation leaks in Japan. Then U.S. starts evacuating Americans. Earthquake exposes risk in global supply chain. Please join me in part 3. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.